My name is Emily. Currently, I'm working at my husband's family-owned business. The company, run by my father-in-law, is a small enterprise with about 6 employees. My father-in-law, the CEO, is a quiet man who rarely interferes in the business operations. Instead, my husband, let's call him John, who is the next in line to take over, does a lot of the work. He personally goes out to bring in projects for the company. When there's a big project, all the employees are eager and work hard. I've been working at this pleasant company for 10 years since we got married, but
Hey, Emily, how long do you plan to stick around our company?
I had come home earlier than John, who was still at work, to prepare dinner. At home, there was my mother-in-law, who wasn't working. She used to work at the company before I joined, and when John and I got married, she said with a smile, "Finally, I don't have to work anymore." However, it seems like she got bored not having to work and started to behave in a way similar to bullying me. What do you mean by sticking around?
Just what I said. You married John because you couldn't work anywhere else, and thought you'd force your way into working at our company, didn't you?
I sighed inwardly. Lately, I've been hearing this a lot. I quit my previous job and joined this family-owned small business when I got married. But I didn't leave my previous job because I was fired. For some reason, my mother-in-law seems to think I'm completely incapable of working. Karen, as I've said before, it's not that I couldn't work at another company. That's not why I joined John's company.
Huh, I can see right through your real intentions.
My mother-in-law said, as if she knew everything about me, and briskly went back to the living room. But the problem with my mother-in-law isn't just her words. She said she would quit the company and focus on household chores, but she doesn't do any of them. My father-in-law has repeatedly addressed this issue. Even though he says, "You're home all day, please do some housework," she responds, "I've worked all my life. Now it's the daughter-in-law's role to take care of the house and does no housework at all. So I mostly end up cooking dinner." My mother-in-law does prepare her own lunch, but never cleans up after herself, leaving the sink full of dishes when I come home. Karen, it would be nice if you could clean up after yourself. At that, my mother-in-law flew into a rage. "Are you trying to order me around? How dare you, as a daughter-in-law? I wish my daughter, Lisa, would come back soon instead of someone inconsiderate like you." Lisa is John's biological sister and my sister-in-law. I've only met her once, during a family meeting. She didn't attend our wedding because she canceled at the last minute. John later called her to ask about it, and it turned out she had hung out drinking with friends the night before and got a hangover. Lisa said, "I'm gonna work in fashion," and seems to have started living in New York after finishing college. Lisa is doing her best in New York.
People say New York is so cold, don't they? I can't believe she could ever live in a place like that. Come to think of it, you were born in New York too, right? No wonder you're so cold to me.
Trying to cook dinner while keeping up with my mother-in-law's chatter was impossible, so I just nodded along and got dinner ready. When my mother-in-law tried to interfere, I simply said, "Dinner's gonna be late at this rate," to get her to reluctantly head back to the living room. Both my father-in-law and John are aware of my mother-in-law's bullying, and they try to admonish her whenever they see it, but it hardly makes a difference. If anything, getting scolded by my father-in-law and John just makes her lash out at me more. I wasn't subjected to violence, and with my father-in-law and John on my side, I had managed to ignore my mother-in-law's words until now. However, my mother-in-law eventually did something unbelievable. It happened one morning as I was getting ready to head to the office after finishing breakfast. Out of nowhere, she exclaimed, "Oh dear, what a mess," and dumped a bucket of water into my bag. "Wait, what are you doing?"
Oh, was it your stuff? I could have sworn it was just a big piece of trash.
Even if you thought it was trash, who dumps water on it? The carpet's soaked now. And the vacuum cleaner. Oh, what's the point? As I was laying out my waterlogged documents on the table, she said with a grin,
Well, you don't need to go to work anymore.
"Excuse me?"
You've been clinging to this house for 10 years, but I finally managed to get rid of you.
"Get rid of me?"
The truth is, my daughter is joining the company, so we want you to leave. Your employment at our company ends today. Well, all you need to do today is apologize to your father-in-law and John for all the trouble you've caused.
I was dumbfounded. Not only was I appalled by her behavior, but the idea that after 10 years of work, I was being replaced by her daughter left me speechless. Are you serious? Wasn't she working in a fashion store?
She said she was tired of dealing with the cold people in New York. So, when I told her there was a job waiting, if she came home, she was eager to return. And now that she's coming back, you can leave this house.
Without listening to me, she handed me an envelope, saying, "I've written your resignation letter for you," and kicked me out of the house. I went to the office, just a 3-minute walk away, and explained everything to my father-in-law and John. They were as astounded as I was, but suggested that maybe resigning would show her the reality of the situation. Reflecting on the past 10 years working for the family business, where vacations were scarce, I realized I hadn't taken a trip by myself. Encouraged by my father-in-law and John to stretch my wings, I decided to take a trip to a spa resort. Apparently, Lisa, who came to work as my replacement, didn't show up until 1 p.m. instead of the morning. Moreover, she seemed to ignore any work-related explanations given by my father-in-law and John. Well, I left for my trip to the spa resort without crossing paths with my mother-in-law. I enjoyed the spa and the seafood to my heart's content for 3 days, but on the 4th day, Lisa, who had started working in my place, came crying to me.
"Hey, what's this all about? Mom said it was a job where I just had to sit in a chair, so I came back, and both John and Dad are acting like I can't do anything."
She must have gotten my contact from her mother. Since I was getting bored with just resting, I decided to address the situation. "How good are you with computers, Lisa?"
I watch videos online. Oh, and I play games?
"Do you know how to use Word or Excel?"
What?
"What about editing software for images or videos or anything? Have you ever used anything like that?"
What's that?
It seemed she had been working in an apparel shop in New York all this time. Working in an apparel shop doesn't mean you wouldn't use a computer. You'd likely use Excel for sales figures. So, can you do sales calculations? Fill in documents?
I can do that.
Then you can obviously calculate sales tax, right? She seemed unsure and surprised. There might be other things she could do, but if she wants to fill the gap I left, she has to be able to do calculations. Her inability to calculate was probably why she's getting scolded by her father and John. After all, she and her mother tried to oust me, so a little hardship was deserved. Anyway, if you're taking over my job, you need to handle the accounting properly, and using informal language like you're texting friends in emails is absolutely unacceptable. Also, you're in charge of scheduling the employees. We don't have many, but we take everyone's vacation requests seriously. Don't prioritize your own time off over theirs. As I kept listing demands, she started crying on the other end of the phone.
I was told I didn't have to do anything. Why is there so much to do? I didn't come back home for this.
And with that, she hung up the phone. I decided to spend the next 3 days doing some sightseeing in New York after Lisa ran away. Sightseeing made me realize that not everyone in New York is cold. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the main instigator, my mother-in-law, and her accomplice, Lisa, were colder at heart. A week after I quit my job, I returned to my in-laws' house. As soon as they knew I was back, my mother-in-law, her face red with anger, came at me as if she was about to grab me.
You made my daughter cry. I won't let this go.
My husband, John, and my father-in-law stopped her from grabbing me. Then John sighed and said,
Lisa's crying because she was scolded for trying to boss around and overwork our employees without being able to do anything herself. It's not Emily's fault. Besides, Emily wasn't here for a week, so there's no way she could have done anything to Lisa. Mom, please stop with your delusions of persecution.
But this woman is making Lisa suffer.
Where is Lisa now? I looked around the living room, but Lisa was nowhere to be seen. I didn't care about my mother-in-law being angry over Lisa, but it seemed Lisa had nowhere to go after canceling her lease on her apartment in New York. I thought she would be at her family's house.
Lisa's holed up in her room. She's crying and saying she doesn't want to go to work anymore.
It seemed she ran away without the will to learn her job. Well, I guess it's understandable that Lisa wouldn't be able to handle my job without any skills.
You must have whispered something to John and Dad. Otherwise, they wouldn't say the company ran better when you, who are worse than Lisa, were here.
My mother-in-law seemed to still have it out for me. John let out a big sigh at this.
Mom, don't you know? Emily has a lot of skills useful for work. She has a bookkeeping certificate and has passed the secretary exam. She also has many other skills useful for work, and she has scored high on the DELF. She also has experience studying abroad, and she handles all the international correspondence for us.
My mother-in-law was surprised at John's explanation. Since I quit my job as soon as I married into the family, she had never seen me excel at work. So, she didn't know I had many skills.
What? That's like something out of a drama.
I wanted to get all the certifications I could during college, so I studied hard for various things. Because of that, I didn't participate much in club activities or have a boyfriend. That's when I became good friends with John, who visited the company I worked for on business. I ended up sharing how John and I met, but that's not what she wanted to hear. I cleared my throat to steer the conversation back on track. So, I was entrusted with a lot of responsibilities at the company. I handled accounting, scheduling, interactions with other companies, and even adjusting employees' shifts. I did a lot of things I was capable of.
Thanks to that, I was able to freely approach other companies for business. It became much easier to work compared to when you were around, Mom.
John said that, to which my mother-in-law just gaped in surprise. Then my father-in-law said, "Well, it looks like we're going to end the company." This caught me off guard as well.
Actually, Lisa made a big mistake. While we were away, she was supposed to prepare some documents, but got distracted by phone calls and ended up being rude to a representative from our partner company, Company A. Of course, I got a call to confirm this.
I couldn't close my gaping mouth. Could Lisa really do something like that? Is the company going to go under just because Lisa joined us? As I was feeling down about this, it seemed there was a silver lining.
When we explained the situation, we were suggested to consider ending our family business. I and Dad had mentioned this before, right? About getting absorbed by another company. Then, the CEO of Company A stepped forward, saying he'd welcome us if Emily and I were involved.
This was more than we could have hoped for. Honestly, there are limits to what a family-run business can do. It's uncertain whether a small family business can secure stable clients. That's why John has always been out, securing clients for us. Being absorbed by a larger company would mean securing stable clients. There wouldn't be sudden uncertainties about our future. However, only my father-in-law, John, and I were relieved by this news. My mother-in-law suddenly regained her energy and started saying, "That's not acceptable. John has to become the CEO. This company is our family's, isn't it?" This surprised me as well. It seemed my mother-in-law was more concerned about the status of being a company's executive family than a stable future. Being part of the executive family but not the CEO, that's absolutely unacceptable. She started making a fuss, which made Lisa, who was in her room upstairs, curious enough to come down to the living room. Then my father-in-law delivered the final blow to the argumentative mother-in-law.
We're getting a divorce, so either way, you're leaving the executive family.
Huh.
I have no intention of continuing to support a wife who not only refuses to change her attitude towards her son's wife, but also neglects household duties. To top it off, she spends her days out of the house, on dates with young men.
As we didn't know that, both John and I were taken aback and looked at my father-in-law in surprise. It seemed my father-in-law had been planning to bring up divorce, as he took out divorce papers and a photo of his wife with a young man from the shelf in the living room and placed them on the table.
If you sign the divorce papers here and leave with your belongings, I won't ask for alimony. I know there's no point in asking you for money anyway.
How could you? A divorce is too much. Haven't I devoted myself to this home all this time?
Devoted to this home? Have you done any proper housework in the last 10 years? Have you ever helped with a business? Does spending someone else's money on young men count as devotion to the home?
I had never seen my usually gentle and quiet father-in-law so angry. Seeing this, Lisa, who had come down to the living room, was trembling.
Lisa, you too. Running to this house because you couldn't make it in New York, acting all high and mighty despite being unable to do any work, and ultimately quitting work altogether. Who did you get that tendency to flee from? You also need to leave this house.
Wait a minute. Dad, Mom might be one thing, but I'm your precious daughter, right?
Really, Lisa, betraying your mom?
My mother-in-law was shocked to be betrayed by her daughter at the last moment. However, before the two could start causing a scene, my father-in-law silenced them with a stern, quiet,
It would be a nuisance to society to just kick you out as you are. So, I've arranged for someone I know to take you in. They'll be here soon, so get your belongings together.
with no other option. My mother-in-law signed the divorce papers, and then she and Lisa started packing their belongings. The person who came to pick them up was an acquaintance of my father-in-law, who runs a factory with a dormitory, and it seems they will be working there from now on. John, my father-in-law, and I discussed the company being absorbed with our employees, and are now busy preparing for the future. And during this time, I found out I was pregnant. When I told the CEO of Company A about this, he was delighted and said he would send someone to cover for me, which was a huge relief. Now, John and my father-in-law are working even harder for the sake of the child that's on the way.